Welcome back to Arise and Shine. Great that you can start your weekend with us. He's a quadruple threat, actor, singer, writer, and producer, but I'm also impressed that you're my co-host's brother, Richard Pryor Jr. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
So exciting to have you here, and I have to say you look so much like Rain. I'm having a little out-of-body experience right now where I feel like my co-host has been replaced by a male version of her.
Yeah, it's insane.
Okay, so tell us, so many people ask you right off the bat to talk about your father, but I want to know, who is Richard Pryor Jr.? Oh,
Richard Pryor Jr. is, I'm a little complicated a little bit because that comes with the territory as being an artist and everything like that. But I'm a quiet guy. I'm sensitive. I'm very shy. I'm a lot like my father. On the performing side, though, it's a thing of you come to life when, you're actually performing on stage and doing what you love to do. And to be able to be in life and find out what you're destined to do and what you're supposed to do in life is beyond anything that can't compare to anything at all.
Absolutely. I think it's so interesting all the time when people who are performers or who are in front of the camera describe themselves as shy. A lot of people ask you about your dad, but tell me a little bit about your mom.
My mom was, she was my rock. My mother was, I get my sensitivity from my mother and everything.
There's a picture of her right now.
Yeah, look, hi, Mom. Yeah, but she was a beautiful lady. She was the type of person that I know when my father first became famous and everything that my child support was like $300 a month. And then when my father became wealthy, my mother never went to court to get an increase on it. So I was 18 years old, still living off $300 a month child support. That's the type of person that she was. She was that caring. Strong,
independent woman.
Yes, definitely.
So tell me about how they actually met each other.
Well, my mother was from a small town. She was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and was from a small town called Louisiana, Missouri. And they moved to the big city, Peoria, Illinois, for work and everything. My grandfather did. And they met at my grandmother and them had a pool hall and a restaurant, and they met at the restaurant.
Oh, how sweet.
And everything. So it was like a clique thing. He was older. My mother was only, I think, 15 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And they married. My mother was 16, and I think my father was 19, I believe, at the time when they were married, and I was born 2 years later.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so I called you a quadruple threat because you do everything: producing, acting, writing, you name it, the list goes on. Do you think that performing was always in your blood?
Oh, it's definitely. I think when I was like 6 years old, 7 years old, our family used to put on talent shows.
Oh.
And
I bet those were cool.
Oh, yeah. We'd write I'd write scripts and different things like that. We had a little skit called The Church of Children where we preached about peanut butter and jelly and different things like that, So those were like really great and exciting moments in my life. And then even with my sister Rain and my other sister Elizabeth, when we go to my father's house, we would actually perform and, put on shows, and we'd go to see a movie like The Exorcist, and we'd recreate the whole thing.
Oh my gosh, I hope someone videotaped that, or at least took some pictures. Okay, so I have to ask you, who is Rodney Clay Pryor?
Rodney Clay Pryor is me.
Okay, explain that.
When I was born, my mother carried me for 6 months, and I was obviously a preemie, and my mother named me Rodney Clay Pryor, and I was actually named after my cousin. My mother loved the name Rodney Clay.
Okay.
And my father went up to the hospital secretly because he thought my mother named me after an old boyfriend or something, and he went up and actually changed my name to Richard Pryor Jr.
Oh, wow.
So my mother goes to the hospital and says, "I'd like to see how my son is doing, Rodney Clay Pryor." And they were like, "We don't have a Rodney Clay Pryor, we have a Richard Pryor Jr." And that's how she found out my name was changed.
Wow. So I'm sure that having your father's name, being Richard Pryor Jr., could have maybe been a little bit of a blessing or maybe a little bit of a curse. I mean, how do you feel about it?
Well, I'll look at it this way. My father told me when I was in my early 20s, he said, "If I would have known I would have been famous, I never would have named you Richard."
Wow.
Because he knew the stigmatism, the baggage that went along with that. There's things you have to learn to live with in life, and we all have obstacles that we have to overcome. The thing of like not knowing who your friends are, knowing the people around you that you can actually trust and be a part of it in your life and everything, your circle. But that's a learning process. It's something that I've dealt with, and that's the thing I've only known my whole life. So,
right, yeah, you don't have any other experience. But speaking of obstacles, obviously your father had some struggles with addiction. Did you have any experience with that too?
Oh, yes, I did. Most definitely. I think a lot of things I actually did. I went through a lot of things with the cocaine and different things like that, and the crystal meth. I remember, times years ago and actually shooting cocaine in my arms and actually calling my dad up saying, guess what I just did? I just shot coke in my arms. And he's like, I'm wanting a serious reaction. And he's like, Richard, it'll be okay. And I'm not getting the reaction that I want from him. I wanted him to go crazy, and he's very calm and everything like that. So I think a lot of things that I did was a way of being even closer to my dad, trying to, because I knew what my dad actually went through and the things that he did. So it was a thing like, maybe if I do this, he's going to be there and I'm going to be around him, because all I wanted was my dad's affection. It wasn't about the money or any fame or anything like that.
Right.
It was about his affection.
And so now you've moved on and you're doing so many amazing things, including this play that we were just talking about, Stirred Crazy. It's a play inspired by your life. Tell us a little bit about it.
Stirred Crazy started out because I wanted to originally do a one-man show playing all these characters in my life. So I got together with TTO Entertainment and the producer, Jose, and we were talking about how could I do this play and actually play some of the characters, and I wanted to broaden it. So I do the play. It takes place with my great-grandma's funeral, Grandma Marie, my dad's grandmother. It takes place at her funeral, and we go back in time. I go to the funeral, but there's also points when we talk about certain things that happened years ago. We go back and we recreate it, so it's like going back in time, seeing that. Oh, cool. And I'm playing Grandma Marie during that part.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm also playing myself in that part, and we have my mother's characters of my mother. We have my aunt and a sister of mine, and also 2 of my nephews.
Amazing.
And it's like how the family comes together and how the differences are, but no matter what the differences are, that you're still family, regardless.
Awesome. Well, I have so much more that I want to ask you. We'll be back with more with Richard Pryor Jr., and I'm putting him on notice. His sister, Rain, will be joining us.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine. We're having a chat with Rain's brother, actor Richard Pryor Jr. Rain is joining us as well.
Hello.
I believe it's the first time you guys have been interviewed together.
Yes, it is.
And one of our producers just said to me that I'm in a Pryor sandwich. And it's so funny.
I'll tell you, a lot of comedians wish they were.
Yeah, I know. I'm very honored. And you know what's the cutest part? You guys were both dancing to the music exactly the same. I can tell that you're related.
We used to put it, like he was talking about, we put on these shows, Priya, as kids. Like, we used to make soap opera videos on Beta. Remember Dad's Beta Cam? And we would film like these dramatic soaps, my brother, my sister, and I. And then we did the horror film in the basement because we had a scary basement.
Oh, no. Well, okay, Rain, hold on. Okay. So I've been waiting for this moment because I'm always with your sister, but you have to spill some good dirt on her. Do you have any funny stories from when you guys were kids?
What?
And we laugh alike too, just by the way.
No, I think one of the funniest things I mentioned earlier was that us doing movies together, and like The Exorcist, and me underneath the bed, like making the bed bounce, and her body's bouncing on the bed.
And we would turn around, act like our heads were turning around.
Wow, you guys, so performing was probably in your blood, I'll say that much.
That when Dad was drowning, in the swimming pool.
We laughed. We told him to swim and move his arms.
Wow, I bet he had a handful with both of you two, I bet. When do you guys, do you remember like a moment where you realized my dad is famous?
I think for me it was, other than me going on tour with him, was when I went and met Billy D. Williams.
Really? Were you dying?
I was all like, oh, my friend Richard, I wanted to meet my friend Bill, and my hand was like, it was like, oh, and he was like, you didn't act like that with me. And I'm like,
remember when he took us to see Silver Streak overseas? Like we went to France or something. We were in the limousine and he was going around. He was asking us who his favorite comedian was, and I was like, and everyone was like, Daddy, you are. He gets to me, and I'm like, Steve Martin. And he's like, let's see if Steve Martin buys you any blank Christmas presents.
Oh goodness. Well, so there's also a great picture that I want to talk about with you and your dad on The Color Purple, right?
Right.
So tell us about that.
Well, I worked on the production side of the Color Purple and everything. It was with Whoopi and Margaret. And Quincy, of course, was a producer on it as well. And Steven Spielberg said, why don't you have your dad just come by the set or whatever. So You know, I think Dad had a bungalow, I believe, on the lot at the time, and he actually just, you know, came over and everything and hung out. So it was actually really nice. It was the first time my dad actually, you know, been there with me actually working when he wasn't a part of something, because I had worked on a lot of his other films as production assistant.
And I think a lot of people don't know, our dad came to everything we did.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
so
if
Dad was in Peoria, Dad would show up to Olive Jr.'s show. He showed up to all my shows. He was very active as a dad, and then it wasn't until, you know, later on that things seemed like it drifted apart, but it wasn't because of Dad. It was mainly because of the people who infiltrated Dad's life.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was about to ask, because obviously he was so busy. Do you really feel like he was able to be a present father for you?
Oh yeah, he was my father. He was like when my talent show my freshman year. He came from my talent show. Came from my high school graduation. Yeah, that was when I was doing the robot and all that stuff. He actually joked about there was actually a clip on with Johnny Carson. They were like, yeah, what are you doing this holiday, you know, this vacation? I'm going back home to see my son in a talent show. And Johnny's like, does he have any talent? My dad said, no, but you know, you gotta support your children.
Well, so both of you guys have tried stand-up.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
To me, it was the most devastating thing in my life. No, to me it was very difficult because having the exact same name, I don't know if anybody can understand, but it was a thing where whatever my material was, if it wasn't just like Dad's, I wasn't funny. But if I did anything or told any stories that were similar to him, I was copying him.
Right. So it's like a double-edged sword.
And for me, you know, as you know, my brother knows, I do it for a living.
Right.
You know, and it is hard. People want to see Richard Pryor, and you know, I'm a female, so I'm like, I'm not Richard Pryor in drag.
Yeah.
You know, although that would be interesting.
So you've done so many things I keep mentioning, but what's next for you?
Well, next for me is my book. I'm actually working on my book right now. I have a wonderful person working with me as far as assisting me with writing and things like that. So I'm really excited for that next level in my life, being able to tell my story and the things that I went through and how parallel my father's and my life
really is.
Yeah.
The things that, you know, I was raised in that same atmosphere.
Junior, how important, you know, and you know, because I did a solo show, so how important is Stirred Crazy for you? Why did you feel I have to do this? By the way, it's tonight at the LaGuardia Center, the Performing Arts.
It was something that's in me that I have no choice to do it. It's like breathing. It was like I've been so stagnant as far as not doing what I've actually meant to do in this world, and coming into that role and that atmosphere of knowing this is what I'm destined to do, and I have something to say. And it shows, you know, not only the fact that we have talent, we're not doing it just because our father's name was Richard Pryor.
Right.
It's in us. You know, from an early age, it was always in us. And being able to tell the story and let people see what our lives were about and the things that we went through and the obstacles that we had, and how you can endure and how you can come through the bad and turn out good and turn out okay. And halfway sane.
Right.
That's an important lesson. I'm sure it's going to be a huge success. I can't wait to hear about it. I'm sure Rain will fill me in about the show. Thanks for being here, Richard. Richard's play, Stirred Crazy, is premiering tonight at 8 p.m. at the LaGuardia Performing Arts Center here in New York City.
You better go, or I'll beat you up.
Next up, a chat with Edgar Arsenault, straight from Art Basel in Miami, and an etiquette coach will whip us into shape.
And later, the cake diva, yay, I'm excited for this herself, will bring some of her amazing creations. So stick around for more Arise and Shine.